Lithuania's capital and largest city, Vilnius, is steeped in history, with lots for visitors to see and do. Welcome to WatchZilla. Today we are going to explore the largest city and capital of Lithuania, Vilnius. Located in the southeast of the Baltic state, the city straddles and banks of the Neris River and has long attracted traders and travelers to its ancient streets. There are several great things to do and see in Vilnius, and this lovely city is a thrilling and superb getaway for those on a short break. Consequently, there is a very multicultural feel to it, with German, Polish, Russian, and of course, Lithuanian influences all on show. Whether your interests lie in architecture, museum hopping, churches, eating, shopping, or just chilling in the park, there's something to do for everyone in Vilnius. Home to impressive churches and cathedrals, cozy cafes, and quirky art installations, Vilnius boasts one of the best preserved old towns in Europe. While it was once known as the Jerusalem of the North, its thriving Jewish population was sadly wiped out during the Second World War. A number of historic tourist attractions, cultural landmarks, and fascinating museums are tragically all that remains of the sizable community. Nowadays, however, it is a very pretty and peaceful place, with plenty of parks and green spaces dotted around. It is this lovely, laid-back feel that make the things to do in Vilnius a delight to explore. Number 10. St. Peter and St. Paul Church. Several publications have frequently referred to the Church of St. Peter and Paul as one of the most beautiful in Europe, alongside churches in cities such as Venice, Madrid, and Krakow. Once you arrive, it's not hard to see why. Although the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul does not appear all that special at first sight, visiting it really is a must when in Vilnius. The interior is a vibrant display of Baroque architecture, and over 2,000 stucco figures decorate the inside of the church hall. The church's relatively austere twin-towered facade conceals a breathtaking interior of over 2,000 white stucco figures featuring biblical, historical, mythical, and allegorical figures, demonic creatures, heavenly bodies, animals, plants, war signs, liturgical and everyday items. It is this huge number that makes the church unique in Europe. Though the church was originally a simple wooden structure, it was destroyed during a time of war with Russia. Built between 1675 and 1704, the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul offers a visual extravaganza with so many sculptures and stuccos for you to take in. It was intended to be a lasting monument to peace and a celebration of Vilnius's deliverance from the Russians, who had just vacated the city after a 13th-year occupation. Its reconstruction resulted in the building that stands today, a rich and visually astounding tapestry of styles. Painted in a dazzling bright white, its interior sparkles before your eyes and looks very elegant and ornate. As you walk in, prepared to be amazed by over-the-top stucco work, featuring cavorting cherubs, rich foliage and exotic plants laden with fruit. The stucco work attains dizzying proportions around the dome, where the rectangular reliefs, flowers, and cartouches giving way to a spiral of angels twang away on musical instruments, and the face of God at the apex. Interspersed among the never-ending stuccos are some wonderful frescoes for you to enjoy, as well as a fantastic Rococo pulpit. The inside has a main nave, but also side altars and several chapels. Don't miss the several richly decorated chapels on either side of the nave, the most famous of which is the altar of the Madonna of Misericord. One of the highlights of the interior is the seductive boat-shaped glass bead chandelier, a reference to St. Peter's profession as a fisherman. Though its interior is a fascinating blend of styles and decor, there are no surviving records to explain who may have designed the stunning interiors. It is an absolute must-see. Number 9. Trackeye. The picturesque town of Trackeye lies a mere 30 kilometers away from Vilnius, making it perfect for a short trip. Trackeye dates from the 13th century and is also the home of the Trackeye Historical National Park that dates from 1991. The town is home to the popular Trackeye Island Castle, which stands on Lake Gav. It is apparently the sole island castle in Eastern Europe and dates back to the 14th century, when Trackeye was the Lithuanian capital. The formidable castle looks very romantic out in the water, with its cluster of red brick watchtowers and squat round turrets topped with spindly weathercocks. The castle is now home to a museum showcasing historical and cultural artifacts. You'll see medieval weaponry and mannequins dressed in the traditional local dress, as well as scale models of the castle showing it at different stages of its development. Other paraphernalia found during excavations, including 16th century tankards, tiles, and coins, are also on display. If you're up for it, you can also go on a boat ride around the lake. In the wider Trackeye region there are some 200 lakes to enjoy during the warmer months. On your way to the castle, you'll pass some quaint old wooden houses, each typically with gable ends and 3 windows facing the street. These rustic houses can be attributed to the Crimean Karaits, a Turkic-speaking ethnic group that has been in Lithuania since the 14th century and has been mainly centered in Trackeye. This small ethnic group, descendants of a Crimean family, has called Trackeye home for more than 7 centuries. Owing to intermarriage and assimilation, there are now an estimated 300 Karaim in Lithuania, just over 100 of whom are in Trackeye. With unique language, traditions, culture and cuisine, Trackeye is a fascinating place to visit, even if you only have time for the food in the castle. Number 8. Museum of Occupations and Freedom Fights. If you're up for it, the Museum of Occupations and Freedom Fights is definitely worth a visit to pay respects and homage to a dark period in the country's history. Recently renamed the Museum of Occupations and Freedom Fights, the KGB Museum certainly looks at the tough, troublesome, and tragic part of the country's history. The deeply moving Museum of Occupation and Freedom Fights chronicles a grim part of Lithuania's recent history, the Nazi and Soviet occupation from 1940 to 1991. Located in a huge building that once acted as the KGB's headquarters in Vilnius, the museum houses lots of harrowing displays that document the country's 50-year occupation by the Soviet Union. The building's history is one of invasion and bloodshed. It first served as the Gestapo headquarters during the Nazi occupation in 1941. When the Soviets retook the country in 1944, the building was used by the KGB to detain, imprison, torture, and execute all those who resisted Soviet rule. The building is now a museum where visitors can tour 3 floors. The top 2 outline the day-to-day life in the country and Lithuanian resistance against the Soviet Union, while the basement houses the prison where torture and execution would take place. The exhibits at the museum probe into this somber period with exhibits dedicated to deportation, civil resistance, and Soviet spying techniques. Its vast collection includes artifacts, photos, and the prison cells themselves, in which the Lithuanian resistance were tortured and executed. Using personal stories, photographs, and multimedia displays, you get to learn about the hordes of Lithuanians who were murdered, imprisoned or deported by the Soviet Union. Particularly moving are the water isolation cells and an execution chamber which displays documents torn by the Soviets and the dug-up remains of victims under glass. In 2011, a section dedicated to Holocaust in Lithuania was also added. This museum is a chilling reminder of occupation and power and the consequences of fighting back. Although it is not for the faint-hearted, the KGB Museum is definitely worth visiting for the important light it sheds on Lithuania's troubled past. Number 7. Vilnius Cathedral. Vilnius Cathedral is the city's chief Roman Catholic cathedral and has been a national symbol for ages. Oddly enough, it doesn't look much like a cathedral from the outside, more like a library or museum in fact. It lies on a site that was originally a shrine to Perkūnas, the Lithuanian god of thunder, and Mindaugas the Great chose to build a simple brick church here in the 13th century, a move which didn't sit too well with the devoutly pagan Lithuanian nobles who had him murdered in 1263. The spot wasn't associated with Christianity again until the conversion of Lithuania adopted Catholicism under Grand Duke Jogaila in 1387. The church took on various guises over the next 400 years, and today's building is largely the result of a late 18th century French classicist facelift which stands in contrast to much of the Baroque architecture found in the Old Town. Under Soviet rule, it was used as a warehouse and a picture gallery. The pediment of the cathedral's main facade is crowned by a trio of monumental statues, with Saint Helena brandishing a huge cross at the apex, accompanied by Casimir, patron saint of Lithuania, on the right, and Stanislas, patron saint of Poland, on the left. Statues of the 4 evangelists lie on the southern facade, and statues of past rulers of Poland-Lithuania run around the sides of the building. The cathedral contains many notable works of art from the 14th through the 19th centuries, including frescoes in the underground chapel and the famous Sapiega Madonna. The cathedral is home to several significant treasures, the most significant of which is the Baroque St. Casimir's Chapel. It is beautifully decorated with marble columns, colorful frescoes, and stucco figures. Also, worth seeing is the crypt, which holds the remains of 2 Grand Dukes and 2 wives of Sigismund Augustus. To the right of the main entrance looms the freestanding, 3-tiered belfry that was originally part of the city's fortifications. This coffee-colored structure sort of resembles a marooned lighthouse. Number 6. Užupis. Another one of the best things to do in Vilnius is walk around Užupis. Absolutely no trip to Vilnius would be complete without a few hours spent wandering the streets of its most unusual neighborhood, Užupis. The name Užupis translates to behind the river, and this scenic part of central Vilnius has narrow streets filled with 19th-century houses and hidden courtyards that are home to various cafes and art galleries. Užupis used to be part of neighboring Vilnius when it was known for being the main Jewish area of the city. A self-governing free town, similar to that of Freetown, Christiania. Created by bohemians and artists on April Fool's Day I 1997, Užupis is a home for the dreamers and a place where the only requirement for entry is a smile. Užupis's inhabitants are an eclectic mix of bohemian artists and musicians, the nouveau riche and the proletariat. In 1997 it declared independence from Vilnius and has its own president and even its own constitution. Užupis even has its own flag, president, currency, postage stamps, Independence Day and 41-point constitution. Ostensibly, the Republic of Užupis also has an army of 11. This was meant as a derisive gesture on the notion of freedom in the age of globalization. Užupis has its own president, currency, and constitution and is very charming to walk around in. Užupis's constitution comes in a spate of languages and guarantees its citizens, among other things, the right to hot water, to be unique, to love, to be free, to be happy and to be a dog. It features hilarious articles like everyone has the right to understand nothing and everyone has the right not to be loved, but not necessarily. Replete with its own constitution extolling, amongst many things, the rights of cats, dogs and people, and based upon the three mottos, don't fight, don't win and don't surrender. This is a place for those who felt it simply was not enough to gain independence from Moscow, it is somewhere for those who truly wanted to be free. You can find it nailed to a wall on Popio Street. You can even get your passport stamped with an official Užupis stamp at the information center. Nowadays it is known for being one of the most exciting areas of Lithuania and has a great street art scene, as well as a wealth of art galleries and underground music venues. There is a bohemian and artistic feel to the small area, and you can find yourself exploring the art installations while lazing about the Vilnia River. It is also famous for its street market every Thursday, which sees a range of organic produce from all over the country. Be sure to visit Užupis for its ambience, art galleries, little craft workshops, and multicolored houses. You won't be disappointed. Number 5, St. Anne's Church. This particular church is a little more ornate than many others in the city. One of the most prominent landmarks in Vilnius, the gorgeous St. Anne's Church lies just a stone's throw away from many of the old town's most important sites. Lying on the banks of the Vilnia River, St. Anne's Church is undoubtedly one of the most impressive and beautiful buildings in the city. St. Anne's Church is a stunning 16th-century Gothic masterpiece that has survived over 500 years without any changes. That said, its original structure was a wooden church built for Anna, the Grand Duchess of Lithuania. If you love Gothic architecture, this church won't disappoint. The church's ornate facade of cascading ogee arches and slender windows is a sight to behold and a unique testament to the Gothic style in a city where Baroque reigns supreme. Flanked by two towers, with a delightful spire lying between them, its elegant red brick facade really does make for a beautiful sight. A beautiful bell tower, also constructed in the Gothic style, stands nearby. The hip knobs and the spires are adorned with decorative crockets so as to resemble curled leaves. Some sources claim that the church was made from 33 various kinds of clay bricks. According to popular legend, Napoleon Bonaparte was so dazzled by the fairy tale, pinnacle-encrusted towers of St. Anne's Church that he's said to have wanted to take it back to Paris in the palm of his hand. Unfortunately, this was not possible, so he may have needed to come back for a visit or two. Napoleon's soldiers actually used the church as a barracks on their way to Moscow in 1812. Miraculously, the beautiful facade has survived tumultuous times. The interior of St. Anne's Church is quite Spartan with extensive red brick rib vaulting across a white ceiling, sheltering a relatively undistinguished ensemble of altars bunched up at the end of the small nave. While its Baroque interior is somewhat plain of comparison, its main altar is well worth checking out. The church is an easy walk from the nearby cathedral, so this can be tacked on to your cathedral visit. Number 4, Hill of Three Crosses. The Hill of Three Crosses is another twofold destination, this time of both historic and national importance. For a country that is apparently pretty flat, Lithuania places an awfully large number of sites atop seemingly large hills, case in point, the Hill of Three Crosses. Once done with the tower, walk down and head over to the stairs leading up to the Three Crosses. The sandy, pine-covered knoll known as the Hill of Three Crosses offers impressive views over Vilnius and is a great spot for gazing at the sunset. At the top, you will find amazing 360-degree views of Vilnius. While its viewpoint is the main attraction, the hill and the three crosses set atop it are actually an important historic site and symbol of the country's rebirth. On top of the hill is the eponymous The Three Crosses Monument, a recognizable landmark and symbol of Vilnius. It is easily recognizable from afar due to its striking all-white color. The monument is a dedication to Lithuania's dark past with the Soviet Union. As the legend goes, wooden crosses were erected atop of the hill all the way back in the 17th century to commemorate 7 Franciscan friars who were beheaded here. In the 50s, however, the Soviets removed them, with the current monuments only being built in 1989 as the Union was collapsing. As such, the three crosses came to symbolize the nation's reawakening. Not of terribly great interest during daylight hours, this viewpoint comes alive at sunset when purple hues play across the skies and streetlights twinkle in the distance. Popular among both tourists and locals alike, many people come here in the evening to watch the sunset over the city. Definitely an excellent spot to watch the sun come down on your weekend break to Vilnius. Number 3. Gediminas Tower. Boasting one of the best views of the city, Gediminas Tower has watched over Vilnius and the Neris River ever since 1409. Set upon a prominent hilltop, the tower is one of the only remaining parts of the upper castle still on show and was rebuilt in its current form in 1933. The Gediminas Castle Tower is a red brick octagonal tower that is the only remaining part of the upper castle complex, which once included defensive structures. The three-tiered red brick tower looks very distinctive. Though most of Gediminas Castle no longer remains, a tower from the upper castle is still standing. It retains very little of its original stonework having been restored and houses a small museum that gives a glimpse into what the castle looked like in medieval times. Inside, there are some fabulous models of what the castle used to look like. Gediminas Tower is highly symbolic, not only to the city of Vilnius, but to Lithuania itself. Originally built in the 1400s, the Upper Castle is one of Lithuania's most famous historical landmarks. It has been depicted on the former national currency, the litas, and is mentioned in countless Lithuanian patriotic poems and folk songs. The main highlight, however, is the breathtaking view you can enjoy from its observation deck. A walk up the hill to take a closer look at this crick structure provides stunning views of Vilnius's historic old town, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Plus, it also provides a superb vista of the church spires and rooftops of the old town, the Hill of Three Crosses as well as the new skyscrapers on the other side of the Neris River. For those who have difficulty in climbing steps, or those who don't want to climb, there is a funicular located at the rear of the northeastern side of the Vilnius Cathedral, inside a small courtyard at the rear of the Museum of Applied Art. Making the hike up Castle Hill to Gediminas Castle Tower is definitely worth it as it is one of the must-see attractions in Vilnius. Number 2. Old Town. A European city with an old town is nothing new, but they are almost always well worth exploring. Included on the UNESCO World Heritage List, the Old Town of Vilnius is one of the largest surviving medieval old towns in Northern Europe, and it's so pretty. Vilnius Old Town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and sits at the point where two of Lithuania's main rivers converge. Vilnius's Old Town is quite large, but easy to navigate. Pastel-colored walls and quaint little streets, it's a delight to explore. Encompassing some 74 different quarters, it is home to a wide array of different architectural styles. It is known for being one of the premium medieval towns in Europe thanks to its amazingly well-preserved buildings and showcases architecture in the Gothic, Renaissance, and neoclassical styles. The Baroque architecture is abundant, and there are plenty of cafes to dip into and enjoy a coffee before moving on. You'll find Baroque and classical palaces and artisans' guilds on show alongside Gothic and Renaissance churches and cathedrals. Interspersed among its many historical sites and cultural landmarks are atmospheric cafes and restaurants that also date back centuries. All the structures are centered on a main piazza and you will find cobbled streets that are dotted with bars and eateries. The streets are bustling at all hours and there is a cafe every 10 steps. It also happens to be where some of the city's best bars can be found, and the local beer scene offers a great place to rub shoulders with the locals. The cobbled streets are extremely clean and boasts a large number of touristy sites like St. Anne's Church and the Presidential Palace. With numerous different sides to it, you can be walking through the castle complex one minute, Cathedral Square the next, before finding yourself in the Vilnius ghetto. Some of the signature spots here include St. Anne's Church, the Presidential Palace, and 2 Jewish quarters. With so much for you to see and do, Vilnius's Old Town is the highlight of any trip to the city. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 1. Gate of Dawn. The Gates of Dawn lies at the periphery of the Old Town and is the last surviving one of Vilnius's 16th century city gates. The only remaining city gate from the former city wall that surrounded Vilnius, the Gates of Dawn is both historically relevant for Lithuania and important to Christianity. Carmelite monks from St. Teresa's Church built a chapel inside the gate in the second half of the 17th century. Not only a significant historical and cultural landmark, the gate is also a popular pilgrimage site as it is home to a famous and revered chapel of the same name. The small chapel inside the gates holds an icon of the Virgin Mary without baby Jesus. It is one of the very few icons to depict the Virgin Mary without the baby Jesus. Within the chapel is an exquisite painting and icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and many people come here to pay their respects or pray for miracles. This Renaissance-style icon was painted on oak in the 1620s and is rumored to have miracle-working powers, making it a top place of pilgrimage for Lithuanians and Poles. The glittering icon is enhanced by the panels on either side. A distinct air of piety surrounds this place, and it is quite common to see people look up at the image and cross themselves as they pass below the gate. In fact, many of the fiercely pious climb on their knees up the steps to this sacred place that is said to bring luck to visitors and help people in their times of need. For those who don't have time to enter the chapel, you can see the icon, which is shining gold, from the street. The Madonna is visible through the arched windows directly above the gate, so even if you don't want to go inside, spare a moment to admire the sacred painting. Entering Vilnius for the first time through such a monumental gate really is an unforgettable way to start your trip. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchZilla and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.